Hey Internet, welcome back to This Printed Thing. My name's Mike, and today we're going to be designing something in Shapr3D. Now, first let me show you what I've got. I have this lamp on my nightstand that just isn't cutting it. It's very dim, I've had it for years, I've tolerated it, but I'm tolerating it no more. What I want to do is design my own lamp in Shapr3D. Usually I just go to websites like printables.com or things.com to see if somebody else has designed something that I can use. But this is something that I actually want to design for myself. So as I've said before, I'll be designing this lamp in Shapr3D, and I'll be using some electronics that I've purchased off of Amazon. But before we get started, a word from the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. PCBWay is your one-stop shop for basic or advanced PCB assembly and prototyping. They have a long list of products and services, including, but not limited to, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and yes, even 3D printing. Step up your prototyping with parts and PCBs from PCBWay. That's PCBWay. PCB prototype the easy way. Now back to the show. Before I just jump right into Shapr3D and start designing, I wanted to kind of draw out my design. So I'm here in Adobe Fresco, and what we're going to do, so we're going to have our lamp shade, something like this, and none of this is to scale. We'll do things to scale once we get into Shapr3D. But I'm going for kind of a minimalist yet somewhat modern approach. So this is going to be the lamp shade, and then our lamp, the lamp itself is going to come down and kind of curve out like this. And this is all going to be one piece. It's all going to print in one piece, and it's going to be closed off here at the top, whereas most lamps are open at the top. The lamp shades are open at the top and open at the bottom. But I'm going to have this one closed off at the top. Inside the lamp shade, we're going to have our lamp itself, and let's call this the back of the lamp. We're going to have a wire going in for power, of course, and we're going to design into the lamp a channel that goes in through the up the inside here, and then out the front of the inside of the lamp. And I'm going to use an F-Cob LED strip that will wrap around the inside of our lamp. And I'm just gonna, from like top to bottom, it's just gonna be LED strip. And the idea here is that the light is going to be shining on the inside of the lampshade. And while this lampshade will be thin enough that some light will go through, the idea is that it's going to bounce off the lampshade, the inside of the lampshade, and hit this and diffuse the light in basically all directions. Now, one thing I'm going to have to be aware of here is these F-Cob light strips, these LED strips, these things are extremely bright. Like, if I use a full roll of this stuff, I'm pretty sure that it will be seen from outer space, like orbiting up to 92 miles above the Earth's atmosphere. Aliens and space stations and whatnot will be able to see this thing. Observe. Okay, this might be an over-dramatization, but these LED strips really are bright. These are the same strips that I installed inside my Bambu X1-Carbon printers, so that I could go from not being able to see very well at all inside the printer to being able to see very, very well. And when you have so much of this strip concentrated in one place, like I plan on doing with this lamp, it can get really, really bright, which is why we're going to need a dimmer knob. So in line here, I'm going to use like right here, we're going to put a dimmer knob so that we can actually control the brightness of our F-Cob LED strip, because this LED strip actually is dimmable. So let's take advantage of that. So let's go ahead and jump right into Shapr3D. Now I want to put out the disclaimer that I've been using Shapr3D for over a year now, but over the time that I've been using it, things have changed, versions have have changed, and so tools are not always in the same place. There may be some points where you'll have to kind of bear with me as I search for a tool where I used to know where it was, but it's no longer there. So what I'm going to do is first design the base of the lamp, and then we'll design the lamp shade to go over it. Now, this is also going to be printed on the Bambu X1-Carbon 3D printer, and we know that it has a build volume of 256 by 256 by 256 millimeters. So I want the whole thing to be able to print in one piece on one plate. So we're going to keep that in mind. Let's start by creating our base. So let's create a base of, let's say, 200 millimeters. Zoom out a bit, and I'm gonna move this. Looks like it was already on that corner point, but let's just make sure. So we're gonna put it right there. And keep in mind that there's also more than one way to skin a cat. So the methods that I use in this design a lot of times can be done a different way. It just depends on your preference. So we have our 200 millimeter circle. I'm going to actually copy this circle and create one just a few millimeters above this circle. So I'm gonna select our circle, go more, move, rotate. I'm gonna tap copy. I say tap because I'm actually doing this on my iPad using the Apple Pencil, which is very convenient in Shapr3D. But I'm gonna grab this up arrow and bring it up, let's say 7 millimeters. So we now have two circles, one raised above the other, about exactly 7 millimeters. We're going to keep copy on. It's going to keep copying every time I make a move until I tap this copy button again. But we're going to make another circle. And let's raise this one like, oh, what the heck? Let's say like 50 millimeters here. I'm going to turn off copy because I'm going to move it again. Actually, you know what? Let's undo that. Let's start over. Zoom out a little so that we can see more of what we're doing. So I'm going to grab this upper circle. I'm going to go move, rotate, copy. We're going to raise it 50 millimeters. So we need to keep track of this. So we've now gone 7 and then another 50. So we've gone 57 millimeters in height. We want to keep track of that because I want to keep it around 200 millimeters in height, just like we've got about 200 millimeters around as well. This particular circle, though, we're actually going to shrink down. And this will all make sense here in a moment, but it's now 200 millimeters. Let's shrink it down to 50 millimeters. So now we've got 3 circles. And you know what? This circle I'm actually going to raise up again. I think our height, we're going to want it a little bit higher so we get a little bit more of a taper in diameter from top to bottom. So just make sure that that's the only thing we have selected. So I'm going to select our circle here, go more, move, rotate. Let's raise it another 20 millimeters. There. So now from this circle to this circle, if we look at the bottom here, it shows a value of 77 millimeters in height. So I want to go another 123 millimeters for our height. So let's grab this one, move, rotate, and we're going to copy. Let's just tap on the arrow, the up arrow here, and go 123. And so that shot us up 123 millimeters. So now if we deselect everything and then we select our top circle and our bottom circle, It'll show us down at the bottom of our screen at the right a value of 200 millimeters. That's a space between those two circles. Now what we're going to do is create a loft using these circles. So we're going to select the inner part of the circle. So you can select the outer part where you just tap the line, but we're going to select the inner part of that circle, the inner part of the next circle up, then this one, then this one. To the left, we're going to tap loft. And that's created this weird shape here. I don't like how skinny it gets here in the center, so I'm going to mess with this thing here. I'm also going to mess with this and this top one. You got to kind of play with them until you get the right shape that you want. I'm going to leave it about there. So we have our base. Now what I want to do is create the channel that's going to go in the back. We're going to say this where the green line is going, and we're going to call that the back. We want to create a channel, and that'll be the back, and it'll go in and up through the center of this and then out the front so that we can run our wires. So we're going to come back here to create that. We're going to start with a little circle. Come on, give me a circle. There we go. We're going to make this like 5 millimeters. Not very big. So we'll zoom in so that we can see it. And I want to put this right on this green line. So what I did was I tapped the outer perimeter, and then I grabbed the dot in the center, and I just drag it up to the green line. Because we're going to line this up with the center of the back of our base. So we have this. We're actually going to rotate it. So we're going to grab the outer perimeter, go more, move, rotate, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. So what that's done is it's created a plane here on the right that's vertical instead of horizontal. That's okay. I'm going to deselect it for now. Now we're actually going to copy this circle. So I actually want to grab the outer perimeter, go more, move and rotate, and I'm going to tap copy. I'm going to tap this arrow that's coming off to the left, and I want to make the copy 97.5 millimeters away. So go 97.5. And so now we have our two circles. So now we're going to keep making copies of this circle to make we're going to use the same loft tool to make the shape of our channel that we're going to then insert into our lamp base. So I'm going to take this circle, and what we should have done with both of these circles was raise them up a millimeter so that we have a millimeter from the bottom of the base to the opening of our channel. So I'm going to select both of them, and then I'm going to move them up 1 millimeter. So this circle I'm going to copy again. Copy. And I'm going to move it 2.5 millimeters. I'm going to turn off copy, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and move it up 2.5 millimeters. And now we're going to copy it, and let's move it up. Let's go 190 millimeters. And we made a copy there. You know what? Let's scratch that. Let's tap the undo button at the bottom left. And let's just go up 180 millimeters. Let's give ourselves some room at the top to play. So we're going to go more, move, rotate, copy, tap the up arrow, 180 millimeters. So this circle now we're going to copy, but first we're going to do a move, rotate. We're going to copy it, move it up 2.5 millimeters, turn off copy, move it to the left 2.5 millimeters, and then rotate it 90 degrees. Now as we zoom out, we can start to see the shape we're going to be taking with our channel. Going to make one more copy here, and the distance of this copy here is going to be arbitrary because we just need it to go out the front of our base. So we're going to move, rotate, copy. I'm going to zoom out, and we're just going to shoot it out. Turn off copy so it doesn't keep making copies. Yeah, that's far enough. It doesn't matter because basically what we're going to do is we're going to create the shape of our channel, insert it into our base, and then delete it, and it'll hollow out that section of our base so that we can run our wires. So I've got my circles. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make each section individually a loft. So I'm going to tap, not the line, but the circle. Then I'm going to tap this circle. We're going to create our loft. Okay? Now we're going to do this circle and this circle. And what it's actually doing when I tap this circle is it's selecting the end of this object that we created. So what we may have to do here is double tap our object and just do a move, rotate, and just move it back a little bit so that we can reveal our circle. We can join this stuff up later. As it is, we're creating separate pieces, so we're going to have to join them up anyway. So tap our circle, and I notice that it's not even giving us the loft function. I think what's going on is because these circles are actually touching, it's not going to be able to calculate that loft. So here's what we're going to do. Let's do an undo to get us back to where we were. We're just going to grab this, go more, move. Let's just move it up a little bit. Now, when we select this, here, let's deselect everything. And we're going to select this, and then select this, and now we have our loft. So we want to have a little bit of an angle right here because as we're trying to push wires in, we need it to be able to push the wire up. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to run our wires. So we've got that. We're going to choose this circle. And then we're going to come up here and choose that circle. Create our loft. And now we're probably going to run into the same problem here that we had before, where if we choose this circle and this circle, it's not going to even give us the loft. So let's just move this off this way just a little bit. Now we choose this circle and this circle. We can do our loft. And lastly, we're going to choose this circle and this last circle. Loft. So this is the shape of our channel that we're going to be inserting into our base. But what we're going to want to do is make all of these pieces one piece. So I'm going to double tap each one to select it. And then off to the left, I'm going to choose Union. Done. Now, if I double tap any part of it, it'll select the whole thing because it is now all one piece. And so we're going to shove this in to our base. And something happened where our channel got moved below our base. So before we insert it into our base, let's just bring it up here. We're going to bring it up, let's say 2 millimeters. So now we'll have a millimeter between the base of the bottom of our base and where the hole is going to be for the opening of our channel. So let's get this thing inserted. Yeet. And why don't we go ahead and just leave a little bit of it out here. What it'll mean is that our channel won't be exactly centered inside this part here, but you know what? I'm okay with that. We're going to deselect it by just tapping anywhere. And then I'm going to double tap our base to select it and double tap this guy, our channel, to select it. So we have both objects selected. And we're going to go more and select subtract. So you'll see here it has a plus on our base, which is purple, and then a minus on our channel, which is still blue. I'm going to tap this keep originals of and make sure that none is selected. Now when I tap done, it will have made a channel throughout our base through which we will run our wires. Hopefully those bends aren't too small for our wires to go through. If so, then we may have to come back and just make some adjustments. So now let's design our lampshade. And we have to think about a couple of things. For one, we don't have a lot of real estate to cover here because this is only 200 millimeters tall. 200 millimeters is really not that much. But our build volume is 256 by 256 by 256. So having those limitations, I didn't want to push all the way to the very edge of that 256. I wanted to give us some room to play as we needed to. For example, in this case, 200 millimeters tall, but we're also going to be adding a lampshade on top of that. So that's gonna add a little bit more height to that. Now, granted, it's not going to be 56 millimeters thick, but let's go ahead and get started. So for my overall width of my lampshade, I'm thinking 150 millimeters is going to do it. So we're going to draw a circle. That is way bigger than I need it to be. Let's just bring it down to 150 millimeters. And let's go ahead and make sure the center of our circle is on this red line for our x-axis. So we know that our base here, it's 50 millimeters in thickness at the top. So this being 150 millimeters means that we're going to have 50 millimeters on either side between the inside of our lamp and the lamp shade. Now, because we have to also think about how thick we want the shell of our lampshade to be, we're going to have to take that into account. The way I figure it, we typically do 0.42 millimeters on our lines when we print. So I figure if we make it 3 lines thick, that should be good enough. So we're going to want to add 1.26 millimeters to this. So let's make it 151.26 millimeters. So what that'll do is it'll make the inner part of our lampshade 150 millimeters. So let's go ahead and copy this circle here. So we'll select it, more. We're going to copy it, and let's go up 100 millimeters. So I figure we'll make the height of our lampshade half the height of our lamp. Now this circle we're going to want to make to fit over this circle. So we're going to need to resize it. But again, we want to account for that 1.26 millimeter thickness of our lampshade's shell. So what we're going to do is we'll make it 51.26 millimeters. And then you can probably see what we're going to be doing from here. We're going to create a loft. So we have our overall shape, but we have a solid shape. That's our problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our bottom here, go more, and select shell. And we're going to tap this 0.0 millimeters. We're going to go 1.26. And look at that. So now we have the shell of what will be our lampshade. So we need to match this up with the top of this. So what I like to do is use a tool that we call a line. So let's start by moving our lampshade to the side just to get it away from these geometries that we drew in order to make our lampshade. I also think I'm going to do the same thing with our lamp over here just to get it away from these other geometries that we've drawn earlier. So we have just the shapes. Now one problem that we're going to run into is we know that this circle here is 50 millimeters. But if we tap this inner circle here, we can see that it's not quite 50 millimeters. And of course, this is because by creating the shell, we created some geometries that made the inner part of this circle just not exactly 50 millimeters. And I'm going to go ahead and not worry about that right now. I don't think it's going to be an issue, because what we're going to do is we're going to select this circle here, and then at the left we're going to tap align, and then we're going to tap this circle here on top of our lamp, and you can see it just kind of lines things up. So I'm going to tap done, and look at that. Now we still have two separate shapes because we have this shape and this shape, but I double tap them both to select them, and I'm going to tap union at the left and done. And now it's all one shape. If I double tap any of it, it selects the whole thing. And then if we look up inside here, there's our channel that leads to this part here. So once printed, we should be able to shove a wire through there. And because of the way we angled things, hopefully the wire will go through. The wire will hopefully be rigid enough to go through there after it's printed. Speaking of printing, let's get that done. So it wasn't until I got this into Bambu Studio, which is our slicer, that I took a look at this and said, you know what? This is ridiculous. So this footprint is huge for starters. It's going to take a lot of plastic to print this. And in reality, the printer might have a little bit of a problem with this, because while the Bambu X1-Carbon is really good with printing overhangs, and yes, this is going to be an overhang because guess what? This is going to have to be printed upside down. Otherwise, the shade isn't going to print properly. So while the Bambu X1-Carbon is good at printing overhangs, this might be a little bit too steep. Maybe not. But what I did is I went ahead and redesigned it with a smaller footprint. So we have this here. We still want it to be stable, so it still has to have a little bit of a footprint, but instead of 200 millimeters, I used the circles that we had there in our project in Shapr3D to bring this down to 130 millimeters. And because I left those circles there in our project, this really only took me a couple of minutes to do. So let's change this to white. And once again, let's print it upside down. 0.2 millimeters is going to be my standard on this. So I'm going to slice this. And what I had earlier was going to take 8.5 hours. This is going to take just under 6 to print. So let's get to it. So here I have the printed object, and it turned out well. What I didn't mention before I printed it was that I scaled it up slightly in the Z-axis to make it a little taller. And I went ahead and I ran my wires, and I also attached this inline dimmer knob because, as I mentioned before, these LED strips that I installed in here are dimmable. I would say that it's not perfect. There are a few things I would change and probably will change in the future as I kind of perfect this. But one of the problems that I had was when I ran my wires through this hole, we added angles in the channel that went up through the lamp, but those angles just didn't help. I was able to get the wire past this first angle, but when I got to the top to shoot it out the side here, the wire just would not go through. So what I ended up doing was drilling a hole in the bottom to run the wire into our channel and up and out through the top here, and then I just snaked it back through here, and then I soldered my wires to the LED strip. Not sure if you can really see that very well, but the real question is, does it work? Alexa, turn on the lamp. So as you can see, it's a good thing that I installed this dimmer knob, because otherwise this was just way too bright for my room. I mean, that's a lot of FCOB LED strip that I put in there. So that's another refinement I'd probably make. Maybe don't put so much LED into my lamp. But that's it for this video. If you like content about 3D printing, consider subscribing. Also, we have a Patreon where we post all of the files and objects that we create. And as a Patreon member, you have license to sell 3D prints of our models on whatever platform you desire. And we thank you for watching this video. Until next time, fire up those 3D printers and make something awesome. While you enjoy this end screen, I would like to leave you with this random thought. If two people on opposite sides of the world simultaneously drop a piece of bread, the world for that moment becomes a sandwich. See you next time.